Once upon a time, the world came to an end. You've heard about that, haven't you? Oh, you haven't? Well, that's what I heard. But it could well be that it's not true because it's still here. It could also have been something that Odin dreamt. Have you heard of him? The king of the gods. Do you know what? I'd better begin at the beginning. In the beginning there was nothing. No little animals and no thoughts. No friends, no views, no cars, no birds, no knitted sweaters and no sweets. Nothing whatsoever. Not a soul. Just one big hole. But then, all of a sudden, there was something. And then something else came. And more something else's. At first, quite a lot, and then more and more. The something that came was nothing out of the ordinary. It just came. It was a bit soft and cautious and had no definite shape. But then came a being who had a name. It was Mimer. He was the first of the giants, and he was furious. Luckily, a cow came along as well, and straight away, Mimer started to drink its milk, and that calmed him down a little. And then things really started happening, because out of Mimer's armpits and from between his toes came some new beings who also called themselves giants, although they were much smaller. When the cow got hungry itself, it started having a taste of what was there, licking at all sorts of things, until a new being came to life. It was Bua. Bua had children with a giant woman. These children were amazingly strong and called themselves gods. It could well be that I'm talking rubbish now, because perhaps they didn't call themselves gods at all. Maybe that was just a name that human beings called them much later. But anyway, the gods killed Mimer. It was time for a change, and they wanted to decide how things should be. After that, they built a world out of him. They used the top of his skull as the heavens. His bones became mountains. And his eyebrows became trees. His blood served as the seas and oceans. Odin was the wisest of the gods. It was he who decided how things should be, and he also created the first humans. And up through this new world grew a huge tree called Yggdrasil. Its crown reached up to heaven, and its roots bored down into the bowels of the earth. In the middle, there was a mountain, and the gods lived at the top of it. The humans were placed further down, and when the gods visited them, they used a rainbow as a bridge. But the giants, who were steadily growing in numbers, also wanted a place in the world, and the gods didn't like that. They thought the giants were a bunch of scatterbrains who spoiled everything. They must go, said Odin, and the giants were forced right out to the edge of the world, where they had to hide themselves away. That's the way I want it, said Odin. Peace and quiet and no more trouble. And that was that. Once the world was created, things just carried on as they should. The sun rose and set, night came after day, winter followed summer, the bees made honey, the birds built nests and laid eggs, animals and humans had their young, the farmers worked the soil, the giants caused trouble, the gods threw them out, and that's how things were all the way down the line, time and time again. Everything else that was not allowed on Earth lived on secretly in hiding. Well, that was the beginning, and that's about as far as it goes. So now, here is the story of Balder's dreams and Odin's eye. Odin and his wife Frigg had two sons called Balder and Hoder. They were the best of friends and went everywhere together, because Hoder was blind, and Balder was the one who told him what the world looked like. Balder was not like the other gods. He was friendly towards everyone and disliked fighting. He was so handsome and good-hearted that he was loved by the gods, human beings, and animals alike. The birds perched on his head, and when he lay in the grass, the wild animals would lie down beside him. But Balder was troubled. Every night he had terrible dreams about the world coming to an end. Every night he dreamt that the giants and the gods wanted to slay each other, and that the Fenris wolf would tear Odin to shreds. It worried Odin that Balder had these nightmares. He began to think that maybe he had created the wrong kind of world. He could not actually find any flaws in the world as it was, but it troubled him, and he began to wonder. At one point, he came all the way down to the roots of the massive tree known as Yggdrasil. Here there was a lake called Mimer's Well, and it was said that he who dared to bathe in it would come to learn the truth. But Odin feared nothing, so he dived into the deep cold water to discover that it was full of beings that were unknown to him. They had no definite shape and grew out of nothing and became nothing once more. Sometimes they also touched him, but he didn't like that. Odin heard a voice saying, "Do not be afraid. All this is something made by you. Was it not you who created the world?" Then another form appeared beside him in the water. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am you. I am all your thoughts," it said. "Think of something or other." Odin thought that it moved like a snake, and all of a sudden, it became a snake so enormous that one could not see where it began or ended. It was the serpent of Middle-earth, so big that it could coil itself around the world, and for a second, Odin thought it would crush him, but then it vanished. "Were you afraid?" asked the voice. "Afraid? There are things that are much worse than that," said Odin. But he should never have said that. Because now another creature appeared from the depths. It was the Fenris wolf, which pounced on Odin and was about to tear him to shreds. But Odin showed no fear anyway, because the wolf was only a dream and vanished as soon as he thought of something else. "My children are like that," said the voice. "They come only when you call upon them." "Have you any more?" asked Odin. But before he could finish, Hel appeared in the water. She was a giant woman and guardian of the kingdom of death. When she grabbed Odin, everything froze to ice. The world came to a halt, and time came to a standstill. Suddenly Odin realized that everything was just as Balder had dreamt, and he was puzzled. But then the ice melted and became a vague shape in the water. The voice spoke to him and asked, "Why did you come? Is there something worrying you?" "Who are you?" asked Odin. "I have told you that, but if you really must give me a name, you can call me Loke." Then Odin told all about Balder, who was so handsome and wise, but had awful nightmares. "Maybe your son is afraid of losing all the things he loves," said Loke. "Yes, but he has no reason to," said Odin. "Frigg, his mother, has made the entire world swear to look after him. Every animal, human being, plant and stone have promised that they will never harm or hurt him. There is absolutely no one who wishes to kill him. And what about the other gods?" "All the gods adore him, but they tease him." "Why do they tease him?" "For fun." They know they cannot hurt him. When they aim at him, the arrows fly past him. Their swords break in half, and stones stop in midair without touching him. There is not a single thing on earth that can harm him. The giants are the only ones we cannot trust. Yes, I know that, said Loke, for I am a kind of giant myself. So are you. Your mother was a giant. As soon as he said that, Odin became troubled again. If you are a giant, he said, then tell me what a giant might do. A giant could do all sorts of things, said Loke. Tell me what could happen to Balder. What would you do if you wanted to find a way to hurt him? Yes, but I don't want to hurt him. But if... It's easy enough to find ways, said Loke. It depends on what we would do, but even more so, what we wouldn't do. And remember, what I'm about to tell you now is merely a story you yourself have put together. He told as follows. When your wife, Frigg, talked to all worldly things and made them promise to protect Balder, she may have forgotten one small plant. The mistletoe? Odin asked. For example, said Loke. And if I wanted to harm Balder, I would find it and whittle an arrow, give that arrow to his blind brother Huda, and help him to aim it. Why? Because that would be the most wicked thing to do, said Loke. Those two brothers love each other and are never apart. And what then? Asked Odin. Then Huda would shoot the arrow at Balder's heart and kill him. Odin flew into a rage and grabbed Loke, shouting, "And then what, you miserable scoundrel?" "Then nothing," Loke said. "It's just a story." "Do you think you can get away from us?" asked Odin. "Don't you realize that all the gods will track you down and punish you?" "Yes, but what if I disguised myself so nobody could recognize me?" "How?" asked Odin. "Finish telling the story." "Maybe the gods would go to the kingdom of death and ask if Balder could be brought back to life," said Loke. "Of course," Odin said. "That is precisely what we would do." "Yes," said Loke. "And there in the kingdom of death, my daughter Hel will receive them and tell them that Balder could only come back to life if the whole world wept because of his death." And then the gods would wander all over the world and talk to every single thing, every single animal, and every single human, just like the time Frigg asked the world to protect Balder. "And all things would weep for him and pray for his life," said Odin. "Yes," said Loke, "but in time you will meet a giant woman who prays for no one." That was Tuk. She will not mourn for Balder. She will say that she cried dry tears because of Balder's death. "And this Tuk is, of course, you blackguard," screamed Odin. "Yes," said Loke, "but remember now that it is just a story." "Yes, And just remember, if it was true, I would flay you alive, shouted Odin. Perhaps, said Loke, but it could well be that I could change myself into a fly and buzz off. Then I would kill you with one foul swipe, said Odin. Maybe, or I could change into a fish and disappear into the water, said Loke. Then I would hunt you down with a net, said Odin, and pull you up on land. And when you were yourself again, for fish cannot live out of water, we would tie you to a stone and hang a poisonous snake over your head so that its venom could drip into your eyes for the rest of your life. Would you now? Said Loke. Then go ahead and tell the story yourself. It's going very well without me. Then he vanished, and Odin lay alone in the water. And in a way, one could say that he'd become wiser. But he realized also that he had lost an eye in exchange for the knowledge he had acquired.